Hello, everyone. My name is Jennifer Fischer. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Lynx Technology Partners. And on behalf of the Cyversity New York Metro Chapter leadership team, I welcome you to our monthly meeting with special thanks to our sponsors. Just a reminder that the New York City Metro Chapter is open to all levels of members. So, from CISO to cyber major, all are welcome. We rotate the topics so that there's something for everyone each month. This month, we're focusing on a skill share. And the objective really is to focus on professional development and career development. As you may know, October is Cybersecurity Awareness Month. We're also recognizing Cybersecurity Career Awareness Week, which is led by NICE, the National Initiative for Cybersecurity Education. And it's a week-long campaign that inspires and promotes the exploration of cybersecurity careers. And so, this topic really resonated for us, and we wanted to highlight this week and make sure you understood the benefits as well of Cyversity in that space. So today we're very pleased to bring you our two featured speakers, Gleb Reznik, the CISO at Synchrony Financial, and Tracey, Director of Sales at Human Resource Systems Group. Tracey is also going to share a demo of the Competency Core software, which you have access to as a Cyversity chapter member. Q&A, as always, Q&A is very much welcomed. So feel free to submit questions via the chat or ask them live. We will take live questions following both speakers. We want to make sure that we give ample time for covering the topics, and then we can dive into questions for both speakers at the end live. And again, feel free to send them through the chat as well, and we'll cover them for you if you prefer. Just how to engage with us. You'll see on the Cyversity website, our New York City Metro Chapter page is now mature and very robust. So you'll see, there are multiple events, on a rolling basis there. As well, you can always direct email us at nyc@cyversity.org. And I just want to throw out a reminder, toward the end, I'll remind you again, but there's a very brief survey following this event, and it really helps for us to get your feedback and to, hear your thoughts both about this specific event as well as our upcoming topics that we're planning out into 2022. So before we get started, I just want to introduce my colleagues on the New York City Metro Chapter leadership team. President Kirby Brown, our treasurer, who is not able to be with us today, Jason Salas Gonzalez, our secretary, Doyen Diallo, and our national board member and advisor, Eric Perminter. So today we have the pleasure of speaking with, first, Gleb Reznik, CISO at Synchrony, about implementing a world-class corporate program designed to advance cyber talent and skills, followed by Tracey, Director of Sales at HRSG, about Competency Core software and cyber skills and career development aligned to the NICE framework. And I would ask Gleb and then Tracey, as each of you begin your talks, if you would please just give a moment to briefly introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about what you do, and give the members a little bit of context as to who you are, and then we'll be off into the topics. Gleb, we'll start with you.
All right, very good. Thank you, Jennifer, for that great introduction. And I just want to say I'm very much honored to be here today, and hopefully we'll have a really good conversation around what I think is probably the most important topic when it comes to cybersecurity. A little bit about myself. As you mentioned, Jennifer, I'm the CISO at Synchrony Financial. Synchrony, for those who don't know, is a company that predominantly is known for a couple of things. One, credit cards. Another one is we have a retail bank, online digital retail bank. So I have the pleasure of helping safeguard highly sensitive information for all our clients. Essentially 1 in 3 Americans, adults, have an account with us. So we have a lot to protect, and that's a very important job. Where I wanted to start the conversation today really is around kind of the world that we live in. I think it's important to acknowledge that the cyber threat landscape that we all read about and talk about on a daily basis, whether you are in the world of cyber or not, is continuing to evolve very rapidly, right? So when you think about some of the threats we face from whether it's a nation state, whether it's cyber criminals, it's continuing to increase. So the frequency is increasing, the sophistication is increasing. It has really sadly become the norm, right? So this is something that we are faced with on a daily basis, and not just at work, but also at home. Phishing emails, social engineering attacks, malware, ransomware. These are all things that we all have to deal with on a regular basis. So I'm sad to say it's not getting easier, it's just getting harder. So as you think about that, first thing that should come to mind is, well, how do we help solve that problem? Well, we've been talking about this for quite some time. And the one thing that we all keep coming back to is there's a really big shortage of talent out there. So there's more bad guys than good guys. And there's many numbers thrown out there, but one number I always come back to, and there's about 800,000 jobs that are unfilled currently to help defend against these various threats, right? So it's a really tough problem to solve. And again, it's not getting easier. So when we talk about talent, most companies, first of all, start talk about, well, we need new talent, we need to acquire new talent. And while that is true, for me, one of the more important things is how do we retain talent, right? It's about growing people, giving them the tools and the resources they need to be successful. So one of the big beliefs that I have personally, and this is something that I've spoken to a number of companies about, number of industry events about, is really this theory around how diversity of talent is one of the most important things in the strategy when it comes to information security. The reason is, and I think it's a very simple explanation, but let me run it by you, is when you think about the company, as a company, we have to defend against a variety of different types of attackers, right? So if you think about hackers, they live all over the world. They have diversity, backgrounds, cultures, religion, preferences, color, pick any kind of differentiator, it's in there. And so when we think about that, we simply cannot defend against that type of a diverse attacking talent with a non-diverse defender talent. So it is imperative that we bring together a very, very thoughtful and a structured approach to really help drive diversity in talent. And when I say diversity, again, it could be many different things, backgrounds, race, preferences, religion, even college, no college. I think you'll be amazed at how much diversity really means when it comes to defending against these cyber threats that we face on a daily basis. So one of the things that I've been really passionate about and working with Cyversity on as their advisory board member is really figuring out how do we help this? How do we help solve this problem? Right? It's a really tough problem. We've been talking about it for a long time. And so as we partnered together, we figured out that the challenge that we all keep running into is that we want to build new talent. We want to grow people, give them the time to really mature their careers. The challenge is we don't have time, right? You just heard me say we have 800,000 jobs that are unfilled today. So that means the people that are doing the defending on a daily basis, they're so overworked, they don't have the time to work on the people piece of this. And so one of the things that we've really come up with is this construct of, and obviously you're going to hear more about it later today, is career pathing. How do we help individuals enter the world of cybersecurity? Because I'll be the first one to say, cybersecurity is very intimidating. There's a lot of terms, a lot of technology jargon, a lot of innovation happening, right? It's constantly evolving. The threats are constantly changing. So staying on top of it is very, very hard. Just as soon as you think you learned something, it has already changed, right? So that means we need to do a better job of making sure that we continue to, it's a life cycle, continue to evolve our talent, continue to grow, and help our organization focus on the career pathing. Meaning, when I say career pathing, it really means when you enter the workforce in cybersecurity, don't just sit in that job forever, because that's not very realistic. You want to continue to evolve and grow into other roles. And the good news within cybersecurity, there's so many different roles, everything from, finding the bad guys to stopping the bad guys to looking for the bad guys. There's just an infinite amount of things. And some of them require technical background, some don't. And we as companies really need to help organizations like Cyversity and others figure that out and make sure that you have the right tools to have, think of it as like a nice little roadmap of where can you go. So each one of you has some great things you're, really, really good at, right? Skills, expertise in certain areas. It doesn't have to be technology, but the first question you would ask is, how do I apply this? Like, what role does that fit into? And so again, in partnership with Cyversity, we developed this really cool tool, which you'll see a demo shortly. And this tool allows you to, first of all, figure out what do I fit in, right? How do my skills, what I know today, allow me to be successful in the world of cybersecurity? And then as you continue to charter your career path, how do you continue to grow? And what resources do you need? Training, conferences, mentorship, other things that really kind of fit nicely into this roadmap to make sure you're set up for success. Because the last thing we want, right, is for individuals to enter this workforce, not be successful, and really be unhappy, right? Remember, the mission here is attract more, make people really love what they do, and continue to evolve into the future cyber leaders that we all desperately need to defend against this highly sophisticated cyber threat landscape. So I'm gonna, before I hand it over to Tracey, it is just, again, an honor to be here, an honor to talk about some of these things. And again, I wanna stress for the corporations that are part of this really phenomenal organization, Cyversity, is that it is our responsibility to figure this out. This is not gonna figure itself out. We own a piece of this, and we all need to contribute to making this a reality, because the future of our cyber threats mitigation and remediation lives with us. It's not going to figure itself out. So I'm very, very excited to hand it over to Tracey and give you a little bit of a preview of what this tool really looks like and how you can use it on a daily basis.
Thanks, Gleb, and thanks, Jennifer, for that great intro as well. So first of all, a little bit about myself. I am one of those people that Gleb talked about that has no background whatsoever in cybersecurity. However, talent management is where I've personally lived for about 15 years. So I was super excited when myself and Eric crossed paths, I think maybe a year or two ago, and started talking NICE framework. And I'll be very honest, and Eric laughed at me because I was like, the NICE framework, what's all that about? I was very intrigued. So anyhow, years go by, we've built some things, and super excited to show you guys how you might be able to use it. With all that being said, I'm just going to share my screen, so just bear with me for 2 seconds. You should be all looking at the Cyversity login screen. Hopefully we're all connected and good. All right, so what I'm going to do basically is logging in here as myself, as an employee in this space, or in your world as part of the members, I guess. What I do have access right away from a end user standpoint, of course, I can come in at any point and look at those jobs that Gleb was talking to. We've got them all put into a job group referred to as the NICE work roles. So you can kind of glance through, see what they're all about. You can open up any of those, of course, and take a look. You'll see the titles, the summaries, the responsibilities have been done for you, and of course the competencies. Now what we've done here, of course, is use those 4 levels that you're all familiar with in your space. So you'll see those are all defined for you, and of course all of what the skills are indicated under each of those levels for you. If we go back though, what's more important is if I'm looking at this from a person who wants to kind of find out where I am today. When I look at my own personal profile, it will show me those strengths. So I'm looking at my own personal competencies and what role I'm in today, which, by the way, is a security control assessor. On the left, the software will actually give you some suggestions on a match for you. Doesn't mean you have to go that route, but it's there to help you out if you're at all interested. So it'll show you the competencies. It will highlight to you as well where you currently sit, and of course, what's required. So from an end user standpoint, right away, I can see what my gaps are. And then, of course, I can go about filling those gaps. There's another way to look at the software as well. You can kind of come over here and you can explore. For those visual folks out there, this is great because it's going to show you really quick moving up into different levels within the NICE framework, or potentially you may want to stay into like a lateral type of move, if you will. And there is a percentage defined on each of these that is there to indicate what your strength is in terms of what's required to go that route. So you'll see you have 80% of what's required. So that means you've got a 20% gap to work towards. Also, when you come in, of course, you're going to have access to our homepage as well. And again, it's got some nice widgets in here to help you basically look at potential job matches are here for you right off the bat when you come in. Really using the tool, if you think about it from Cyversity, HRSG standpoint, one of the biggest challenges employers face today is putting the right people on the right career path. So this is exactly what this tool will do for you folks. And with that, I am done, and I'll hand it back to you, Jennifer.
Thanks so much, Tracey. I just wanted to mention, you know, an employee sort of success story, right? Unfortunately, she was unable to join us today. She'll be joining us at a future New York City chapter meeting to talk a little bit about her experience. But I did want to mention this because I think it resonates, you know, for so many. We have an employee at Lynx who was, you know, working successfully in the cyber field. She felt like she needed to progress in some areas. She leveraged the relationship with Cyversity, right, in using the tool and understanding sort of, you know, where her gaps were. And she discovered she wanted to pursue some additional training and a certification. And actually through Cyversity, both because they had a relationship with that training provider, as well as, you know, because she had the backing of her mentor through Cyversity, you know, she was able to also, you know, leverage a heavily discounted training, right, for herself. And so this is the type of, you know, career progression that, you know, we think is sort of exemplary, right, of the benefit that you can gain from your membership, because it really does extend, you know, in so many different directions. You know, as a you know, even additional you know, piece to this, she happens to work at Synchrony, right? And so it's a full end-to-end view, right, of what that benefit is. The employer where she is, you know, supports cyber competency career progression, right? Through Cyversity, she's got access to self-assessment and ongoing development and ongoing training. She's got support through her mentoring relationship as well. And then she's able to, you know, apply that in the day-to-day, you know, in terms of her career goals and what we see her, you know, working with and setting out, you know, milestones for where she wants her career to take her. And so it really does sort of come full circle in terms of all of the different aspects of how Cyversity membership can benefit you. So with that, I want to turn it over to the group. We'll open it up for questions and discussion, both for Gleb and for Tracey, and of course for ourselves as well, should you have any.
Yeah, Jennifer, if you don't mind, I'd like to jump in very quickly because I do think hearing some of these presentations, and look, I've been on the other end of this, right? Sitting and listening to this, making it real is very important, right?
Yeah.
So we can talk about frameworks and tools all day long. I think the reality is, and I love the fact that you brought up this individual because I think it's a really great story. Just kind of add a little more context here. So this individual has a criminal justice background. She went to 2-year school, right? And really said, hey, like cybersecurity is just an interesting field. She didn't have any really background in it. And she took it upon herself to really figure it out, right? Took the initiative, leveraged the tools available to her. And what's really impressive here is she grew through this opportunity to become really one of our top experts when it comes to forensics. And again, forensics is a very, very complicated, kind of specific niche within the cybersecurity world. Well, I think the really cool part about that is as she became the expert and has really introduced some great thought leadership in this space, she said, hey, I kind of hit the ceiling, right? Like I'm not to say I'm the best in the world, right? But I'm like, I know what I'm doing pretty well. What's next, right? And to me, that shows that, self-interest, self-motivation. But I think the piece that Jennifer brought into the context here that's really, really important to kind of bring this whole conversation together, that not only did she raise her hand and say, hey, like what's next, but because of the tools, because of the Cyversity horsepower available to her, she was able to take advantage of it, right? Figure out the career path. So she's evolving to a different path, not just forensics, but now incident response. And she has the training, the tools, the mentorship necessary to be successful. So again, you are all part of a very, very special organization. And I think there's a lot to be said for what this organization is doing and the resources you have access to. Sorry, just thought I add a little bit more there.
Absolutely, Gleb. And very, very well said, and important to bring up because I think, what you mentioned earlier is very true. I think people are a little bit intimidated when they think about cyber, as a field and what, the expectation is going to be of them. And so, it really does make it far more accessible, I think, when people realize that, you can come in from other backgrounds, technical and non-technical, and still be successful. Absolutely. So let's open it up to the group. I don't see any questions in the chat, so I'll ask if folks want to ask live questions of Gleb and or Tracey. If you would raise your hand, your virtual hand, that is.
And maybe I can ask a question to kind of maybe probe the audience. We don't really have a great sense of who's here and what the expectations here. Do we have a bunch of new early career folks or folks who want to transition? And maybe we can steer some of the conversation to make sure folks are getting what they need out of the discussion.
Absolutely.
Would anyone be willing to volunteer, kind of introduce themselves and kind of a little bit of background on what they're hoping to get out of this discussion?
Hi, everyone. My name is Omatula, and I am a tech pathway employment specialist at a nonprofit in Brooklyn, New York called Opportunities for a Better Tomorrow. So my organization trains young people 17 to 24 in cloud support engineering. And so I am really interested in learning about opportunities for our participants to get into entry-level opportunities. We have students who come into our program for cloud support, but they're interested in cybersecurity. And so I'm interested in how they can make that transition in terms of what support this organization could provide with training and also internships or employment. So Tracey did go over the website, so I'm definitely going to check that out. But that's what I'm looking for, is just seeing how I can provide resources to my participants.
I'll take a shot at that first. I think one of the big things about Cyversity that attracted me here is their mission to do exactly what you're describing, and is really kind of train and help place folks looking to get into the business or elevate their career to the next step. At the New York City chapter specifically, we're rolling out what we're calling a risk assessment professional program, where we're looking to kind of help whether it be mid-career folks who want to transition into cybersecurity, or entry-level folks fresh out of college or without any college degree, learn to do risk assessments. And that will, the goal of the program is to do not only training, but potentially some hands-on work. And also we also have scholarships potentially available for people to do additional certifications, outside of what training Cyversity offers. So I think that aligns really closely to what we want to do as an organization. And while our chapter may be focusing on risk assessment professionals, there's other chapters that may touch on other career areas that may be more of interest to your staff. I don't know if Eric or Jennifer, you want to kind of expound upon that at all. But,
yeah, I'll add by posing a question to Gleb. Gleb, you talked about diversity of thought. We recognize that folks are going to enter the field at different levels. How does a junior or entry-level individual ultimately get on your radar? What are some of the non-traditional things that you look for in those individuals to lean in, right, and consider them a part of your team, if you will?
Yeah, what a great question. And by the way, I want to call out OBT, what a phenomenal mission there, right? So I know it's been a New York establishment for a very long time. So very, very excited to have you here in this conversation. With regards to kind of my perspective on, newcomers into this field, there's really a couple things I always look for. And it's going to surprise a lot of folks because none of those things are technical in nature. Like, I actually don't look for a technical background, how well you can code or how well you know networking. Depending on the role, of course, I look for that if that's what the role requires. But in general, I look for a very few things. And those things are one of the most important one is, are you inquisitive? Do you question and dig into the why, right? So if the information is presented to you, any information, do you try to understand why is that, right? Or do you just take it in and and run with it for what it's worth? So being inquisitive is one of the most critical things in information security. The second one is being able to be essentially being comfortable in operating in a gray space. The reality is our industry is very, very, non-binary. It's not black or white. It's very gray. There's a lot of uncertainties, a lot of variables, and people that operate very comfortably in that space are the ones that I, see continue to be very successful as they continue to progress. And then the third one, and it's probably true not just for information security, I think it's true probably for a lot of industries, is just that hunger. Like I described to you, that individual earlier on, that kind of the success story. It's just pure hunger and desire to learn and grasp new concepts, new information. And to me, if you can combine those three things, being inquisitive, operating comfortably in a gray space, and being hungry for new things, I guarantee if you take all the industry leaders when it comes to cybersecurity and you map them against those three criteria, you will see that it's check marks across the board.
Excellent. Thank you. Great response, Gleb. Thank you.
Yeah, and I would just say as well, I think there is a lot of synergy, between organizations. So, the closer we can work together in terms of, how our benefits might complement, what they're already getting there. I think the first step would be, signing up and joining as members, and then, we can have even a side conversation, right, as to maybe how these folks may want to engage more within our, the training benefits, that type of thing. Or internships, right? Exposure at different events, from a networking perspective to, other perhaps, more specialized, right, encounters. But I definitely think that there's a lot of synergy there. And it sounds like it'd be a really great fit.
And I would just add one thing to Gleb's point about someone showing hunger and desire, and kind of think about college. We were talking about college earlier, that demonstrated interest, right? Showing that demonstrated interest in the field. One of the things I think I failed to mention the first time is we also are a very mentee focused organization. So if someone is showing that hunger and that desire, it's very likely we can find a mentor to work with them in the area they're looking to enter.
I do have one other question. If I can pose it while it's top of mind. Gleb, you talked about the unfilled jobs, right? About 800,000. And you mentioned a couple of other things that are resulting in the continued shortage of available resources to fill those jobs. When you look at the threat landscape and everything that's going on right now, is there a particular area within cyber that you encourage folks to start in or lean in because there are more openings in that area versus others?
Yeah, that's what a phenomenal question. It's probably like, if I had to quantify number, all the different questions I usually get, that's the number one question, because it's the most important question. And again, this is my personal perspective on this, and I've talked to others that kind of share similar views. But again, I'm just sharing that now because there may be a kind of alternative view here as well. When it comes to entry points, like front doors into the world of information security, I would say there's really two good ones. The first one is, most organizations of size, I would say Fortune 500, Fortune 1000, and even some security companies have a function, what's called the Security Operations Center. So this is a function that's really focused on detecting malicious activities targeting a company, right? So if you think about, if your traditional, let's see who's got a video. Peter's got a great background. Sorry to call you out, Peter. Behind him that demonstrates, those multiple screens and people essentially sitting in a room and looking for bad guys. That's a security operations center. And the analysts that sit there are really getting a front row seat, pun intended, to really what's going on in the organization, right? So they're seeing alerts, they're trying to figure out, like, why did that alert just pop up? What's going on in the context of that business, right? So for Synchrony, we have a very specific business that we run. So an alert that pops up in our environment is very different than an alert that pops up in an insurance company. But the point is, those analysts combine that curiosity and that kind of constant looking for what's going on, why is it happening, and they're learning a lot, because every alert that they triage is a learning opportunity. So again, to me, that's one of the best ways to enter into the organization, is through that front door. The other that we've seen, and again, it probably depends on a variety of factors, but the other one we've seen is once an alert happens, you usually hand it over to a team that's called incident response. These are the people that actually, now we've declared there's something going wrong. Now we've got to figure out how to contain it and fix it quickly. And there again, there's a lot of not so much figuring out what's going on, but how do we fix it? So now you go from detecting bad stuff to fixing and making sure you're back to norm. And there's a lot of learning there as well. And so to me, those are probably two best ways into the world of cybersecurity.
Thank you for that.
That's a great answer. And I want to turn to a couple of questions that have popped up in the chat. The first one from Ray, and he's asking, for a career changer trying to break into cybersecurity, would it be beneficial to focus on one role or get into cyber and move laterally to your desired role. So I'm gonna share a little bit about from my experience, my thoughts on that question. And then I would ask, Eric, Gleb, Kirby, please feel free to share your thoughts there too. So yeah, definitely, right? I think there's so much growth. So there's two things, right? There's so much growth, and to Gleb's earlier point, we can't always anticipate all of the areas of growth, because that world moves so fast, that there's a lot of change, there's a lot of opportunity, and there's a lot of development. So, even if you start in one role, it doesn't necessarily mean that, that'll be the role that you will, maintain for a long period of time, because there's so much change. And there's a lot of opportunity to sort of blend skills, right? And try your hand at different things. And I think, in addition to the roles that Gleb was just talking to, like, for example, within a SOC and such, it depends on, when you talk about being a career changer, also, where you're coming from, like what your entry point is, right? As an example, I've had folks who were lawyers, right? And they were, more traditional corporate lawyers, but decided that they wanted to join my team and focus on things like, privacy and some of the, more specific things around, AI law, cyber law, and privacy law. I've had folks coming in from a business background that had, an understanding of risk, right? And they could apply it more so from a information protection perspective, because they understood the business and they had an affinity for data. And so I could combine, those talents together, right? And build up on the risk side. And I think that's true in the technical space as well. I've had folks who were, traditional application development who moved over into DevSecOps because, they were able to bridge those worlds. And it goes back again to that point about curiosity and the hunger, right? And wanting to learn and grow. Same is true in the architecture space. I've had folks who were stellar in terms of being security architects, but, they developed into a BISO because, hey, they could blend their understanding and knowledge of the market and the business and strategy along with the technical acumen that they had as an architect. So, Ray, to your point, it's a great question. And I think there's so much room, within the industry for growth that it almost doesn't matter, what the starting point is, because once you're there, you'll be thinking about, new opportunities as they come out. Any other thoughts there for Ray?
I think you nailed it. Yeah.
We had another question from Bella about the RAP Council, or the Risk Analyst Professional Program that we're looking to launch. And thank you, Eric, you responded. So Bella, the question really was, do you have to be local to participate in that program? And that's correct. The answer is no. We're looking to, as these meetings are virtual, and because the New York City Metro Chapter covers such a broad geographical range, even, quote unquote, locally, from, South Jersey to Connecticut to, through New York and up through Long Island, we by nature are doing more things virtually just so that we can accommodate, even our quote unquote local base. So no, and if you're interested and want to get engaged in that, certainly drop us a line via email, and we'll reach out and get connected there. We're looking to do more with risk workshops as well, in addition to more formal certification. So more to come in that space. Let's see. From Ian, can the panelists describe the career path for working in national security for MITRE or the NSA?
I can kick it off very quickly. I'll just tell you a very interesting story. So when I was graduating from college, I had two offers on the table. One was from the CIA, this is a real true story, and one was from a private sector company, consulting company. I think it all depends on the type of personality, that you have. For me, I am just, always have been kind of focused on tell me details. I want to understand specifics. And so when I spoke with the CIA, it was like, hey, where would I be working? What would I be doing? They kind of looked at me and said, we can't tell you that, right? Like that's pretty secret stuff. And I tend to be very much dynamic. So I like to work. I don't like to be constrained within like a box, like or told like this is the only thing you can do and this is your boundaries. I like the freedom to kind of explore. So it's more of quite honestly, a self-assessment you should do on yourself to understand the type of person you are, and then figure out if government's the right fit for you. I can tell you that we need top talent within our various sectors of the government desperately. So it's not like that I'm saying you shouldn't go into the government, but at the same time, you do need to understand the government and the private sector are two different beasts. I think there's more flexibility in the private sector. And I think there's a lot more technical depth and, certain type of information you just won't get in the private sector just because it's highly classified. So for me, it's really any of those options, MITRE, NSA, CIA, even FBI, even Treasury. Like, so all these different divisions within our government have a specific cybersecurity teams. And so I would argue at this point, any one of those are good entry points.
Can I just follow up on that? Is there how do you get on their radar? Or am I just sending my resume into, jobs@cia.com? How are you, I
think it's that easy at this point. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
That's right. Gleb. I'd agree. And then the other thing too is the NSA also has this program called the Center for Academic Excellence, which is associated with a number of universities. They have, I want to say, close to 200 or so universities that are certified to provide defensive training, and about 10 that are authorized to provide offensive training. Those 10 are the ones that are typically recruiting individuals like Gleb, fresh out of college, to go into that offensive role. And there is a list of them, Ian, on the NSA's website under the Center for Academic Excellence. If you happen to be enrolled in a university or alumni of one of those universities, I would encourage you to leverage the program for that, from that university. Alternatively, just reach directly out to the NSA or the like and apply directly. And Cyversity does have an alliance with the NSA, so we can assist with some of those introductions as well.
I dropped that link in the chat as well to the
Perfect.
academic.
Awesome, thank you.
We got a few more questions, Jennifer.
Yes, we have a question from Jashid. I'm currently in college as a comp sci and infosec major. I'm working a help desk support role currently, and I'm security plus certified. What do you believe would be my next best step? Also, I'm looking for a mentor as well. So would you have any advice on that?
I think actually it's interesting. It's a great question. I actually started my career in the help desk. And I think it was actually a really, really important part of developing an important trait, which is empathy. In the world of cybersecurity, that tends to be a lacking trait. So as painful as that job may seem, it's actually a really important job in your career. So thank you for doing it. I would say that I think it sounds like you're very much on the right path, right? So certifications, starting to get a little bit more technical background. And I would say that the next step is really to, first of all, engage with Cyversity, right? There's a number of different opportunities that they can connect you with. And then also networking with others in the industry, right? Attending conferences, attending various type of roundtables. Because again, every single one of us, I can tell you this as a fact, are looking for individuals to help us, build our future teams. So we're all looking for individuals to join our organizations. So it's just a matter of identifying the right path into that organization based on kind of what we discussed earlier.
I would add to that, if I don't know what organization you're with now, if it has a security team, reach out to them, see if there's ways you can get involved and help with them if they have openings. In my experience and previous SaaS companies, some of the folks from the help desk knew the product best. So whenever we had security issues with the product or questions from customers about the product, sometimes those folks in the help desk who had their hands on a keyboard more often than some of the engineers, were best suited to address that. So that may be an option too, if you have a team that's friendly internally.
Yes, and certainly from the mentoring perspective, that's very much a part of Cyversity's core, right? So I think that there's an application form and sort of instructions on the website, and you can sign up through there and get additional mentoring that might also help expose you to different aspects of cyber, right? And help you sort of, orient yourself to what you want to pursue. We have a question from Hayden. Where do the opportunities for entering cybersecurity into the GRC space lie on the spectrum of entry points?
I'll jump in again. This is kind of an area of interest for me. I think it's a great entry point for those who are technical and or non-technical. Our risk assessment professional program is really focused on that. Our ability we believe is easy ability to train someone who does or does not have technical skills to do risk assessment work. If you have that, again, that drive, that interest, there's lots of resources available to help you kind of understand risk assessment work or compliance with the different standards, whether it be ISO or NIST-based standards, NIST, which is all open, available online. You can easily read up on them, and there's a number of organizations that publish documents about how to manage a compliance program for a particular area. So I would be, if you have more specific questions, I would be glad to chat with you if you would like to, but I think it's a great area to join.
Kirby, just to build on a little bit on a really great points you made there is, and I should have mentioned that is kind of another great entry point into the world of information security. GRC, governance, risk, and compliance is gonna, in my eyes, continue to grow very quickly, right? So we traditionally hear about the SOC analysts and the penetration tests and application security. We don't hear a lot about GRC. I think we're about to see a big explosion in demand for GRC. And the reason for that is, there's a couple of reasons. One, our government has really stepped up, and it's a good thing, with regards to, requirements, guidance, oversight. So that's just going to drive companies to become more aware of their risk environment. And then secondly, I would say that when you think about large companies predominantly, they depend a lot on third parties, meaning you can just do everything yourself. So you have to rely on vendors, and how you assess the security posture of your vendors is becoming, and has always been, but I think is becoming more of a really big topic. And that's going to require some really insightful GRC expertise. So I think that field is about to get really, really big.
And kudos to you, Hayden, for having interest. It's not a sexy entry. Everyone wants to be the SOC engineer or incident response and red team, blue team. Kudos to GRC. So.
Agreed. Tracey, before we wrap up, there's one question in here asking if you've got insights or best practices, based upon HRSG's researchers that you might want to share here in terms of making a career change.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, clearly we work with many different types of industries, more than just cybersecurity space. on a daily basis, I'm talking to folks that are looking to find out, how do I go about it? What do I do? And, whether you have tools in place or not, before you buy any software realistically, I think, and what I tell my customers is, you have to assess like yourself, right? You have to kind of make a list of occupations that you have an interest in, perhaps like to explore, then go about exploring those, like create a short list. I don't know, conduct maybe some informational interviews with folks, make that career choice from there, and then identify what your goals are, right? How you're going to get there. What are you going to do to get to whatever that role is on the end of the day? And then maybe I would go about writing a career action plan to put into place. Now, of course, the tools are nice to have. If you have them, awesome. You would if you joined the community with Cyversity, of course. Little there for you, Eric. But honestly, like Gleb said, right, on the end of the day, software is great, but you really got to know kind of what you're trying to do. So that's what I would always tell folks. Just assess yourself, see what your interests are really.
Right. That's great advice. So we are coming up on the top of the hour. I want to stop at this point. I think we covered all of the questions in the chat. I want to thank today's speakers. Many thanks to Gleb and Tracey for taking the time and sharing your knowledge and your experiences with us as a community. I want to thank all of the participants today as well for giving us your time. And also mark your calendars for our next meeting, which is coming up on November 11th, which is Veterans Day. And we're so thrilled to be having a moderated panel roundtable discussion focused on building a security culture and recognizing, because it's National Military Awareness and Families Awareness Month, having a panel of CISOs who are also veterans. So very excited for that. Just a reminder to complete the survey at the end of this session. And again, if you've got any questions for us or want to connect, feel free to go to the website and shoot us an email. With that, enjoy Cybersecurity Month for the rest of October, and have a great day, everyone.